Welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to solve a problem. Here's what the problem statement is. Within Power BI, I have multiple columns, which are measures, which I want to correspond or translate into categorical columns in a bar chart. Let's look at some pictures. Here's a data set from Spotify. You can see there's multiple tracks and there's columns that have scores. The volume of the data, the happiness of it, the speed, varying things that are calculations, which are percentages. So if we wanted to make a chart that would show each of those measures as a category in like a bar chart or a 100% chart, it will not work by default. Here's what it would look like. I'd put all the measures and it'd make a big stacked bar graph. That's not what I'm looking for. I want one bar for every value across the whole data set. Or if I try to do a clustered, it will bring it all in together. The one way to do this that happens by default is KPIs. So you could get a gauge or a KPI to show this, but by default, you can't get it to look like this. And this is what we're gonna get to. There's another video I did on slicers where you'll see this chart at the bottom. It's a 100% chart that's gonna show the percent and then the remaining percent for every category. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get into the data. I'm gonna show you how you need to manipulate it and model it so you can fix the issue of not being able to use measures as calculated groups and or categorical groups. And then we'll solve the problem. So let's dive into Power BI. Welcome. So here we are in Power BI Desktop. Now let's restate the problem and show the goal. So what we have is a Spotify data set. This file is uploaded to GitHub. You can access it via the description. There's a link. If we look at the data, it's going to have a listing of tracks, and every track has a complete column to measure a percentage of things: speechiness, acousticness, liveness, etc. Our goal is we want to have a bar chart that looks like this, or stacked. It's going to take all of these and make them into a category within a chart. By default, this does not occur. Here's what happens. So here is a very basic table. And we'll do this. We'll start from the beginning. So just to restate the problem, I'm going to go to track. I'm going to pick a track name. And then there are these measures: acousticness, danceability, energy, liveliness, speechiness. You can see these charts don't make any sense, and that's expected. So if we have a table, what this shows is here are the values for all the tracks. But down here, there's a summary. And so what if I want to have a chart that just shows all of these next to each other? Well, if we try to do that, what's going to happen is, say I pick acousticness, it's first going to start with the KPI. And then if I add others, danceability, energy, liveness, it keeps adding it as a multi-level KPI. But I don't want that. I want bars so I can visually see these things. So what if we switch it to a bar? Well, it's going to look like this, which is not what we want either. It stacks them all together. What if we then change it to a clustered? Still, it's just categorically, it's grouping them, but you don't get the individual rows because, again, the goal is to get something that looks like this right there. So I'm going to show you how to do it. So where we need to start first is understanding the concept, again, of how these charts work. So there's going to be values, which is an axis, but we need to have the measure itself become a value. So how do we do that? Well, we need to pivot these or unpivot these columns. So the first key step of this process is to go to your data model and perform these steps. So if we're looking at the transform layer in Power Query, I'm going to pull this up and we have our Spotify data set here. So with whatever you create, whatever your main base data set is, first ensure that you add a column and it's an index column. Now we have an index. This is going to be on the right-hand side. Let me turn this on so we can look at it together. Right here, on the right-hand side, we have an index column. this is going to assign a value to every row in this data set. And essentially what we need to do is take this data set that has these key categories we care about and make a duplicate of it, unpivot the column so each of these values become a row within a column called category, and then their value shows up. And then we can add them to a chart and relate them back to the same exact row ID. It's more advanced, but it's going to be very beneficial. It's a way to solve this problem. And you can repeat this process on everything. So let's look at how to do it. We now have our Spotify data set. I'm going to right click on it and hit duplicate. I'm going to call this, let's rename it to keep things organized. We'll call it Spotify scores %. That's essentially what they are. So within this, what I want to do is strip out everything that I don't care about. So we know we want index, and what you're going to do is go through and pick the columns you want. I'm going to choose now the measures that I care about. Balance, liveness, acousticness, speechiness, loudness, not loudness, that's not a percentage. Energy, danceability. Do that, right click, remove all other columns. Cool. So now, this is a first step of saying I have an index which correlates back to this because every row is going to have its own record split across all the categories in a related data set, aggregating to the exact same value. And you'll see that. So let's go back to scores. We can see that we need to now essentially unpivot these and stuff them into a table that will change the column headers into values. So what we do is we pick all the columns we care about, and then we can go into transform, and there's a function called unpivot columns. If you click it, look how easy that is. So now what this just did is it said, here's the index. So it used to be one row. Now 0 has been broken up into 6 rows, and it returns one value for every single category. And that is the first step into solving this problem. Awesome. So what we've just done is we've partitioned out the Spotify scores. So now let's do this. Let's go home, close and apply, and we're back. So it's going to process this. And what we need to do now is go into the model view, and we can see that it's correctly relating via one-to-one the index, or one to many, where there's one record over here for index, and it's connecting to the Spotify score table we created. And so now, if we come back to this, we can see that here are some of the values, and we'll make sure that they validate when we create this chart. So now, how do we create it? What do we do? I'm going to show you. So what we can do is go to the new, go to what we've built, and for this value, I'm going to click it. In this case, these are percentages. So I'm going to want it to average, and there you go, simply like that. So let's just look at what we're dealing with. We have an attribute, and now it shows the value, and it's breaking it out. So let's add some data labels to this, just so we can see even better what we're looking at. We're going to go to this, enable data labels. Let's format this value to be a percentage. And we'll just get rid of some of the decimals. So now look at what we've just done. We have completed the core step for this pivoting exercise to take measures and put them into categories on a report. Example, you can see acousticness, 21%, 21%, liveness, 19%, everything validates. So that's the step that you do to unpivot these measures and put them into categorical values within a chart. But now, what if we want, again, if our focus is this, if we look at this bar chart, it's 100% and it shows the scaling up to 100%. So how do we get the remaining percentage? Here's what I mean by that. So this chart's working. I'm going to copy this, put it on this page so we can dive through a 100% example. If I copy this and paste it, now let's change this chart and we'll see an issue and I'll show you how to solve it to 100%. Well, what just happened here? So the 100% chart, it takes every value you have for a category, aggregates it up to show subdivisions within it. So that's a lengthier way to say that this is always 68's 100%, 61's 100%, 59's 100%, because we don't have the remaining value. So how do we get that? Well, we can make a calculated measure under Spotify scores, this new thing that we created, a new measure. And I'm simply going to say 1 minus the value. 1 minus Spotify. And what do I call that? Spotify scores. Let's get this going here. 1 minus, I need to create this. Here's what we're gonna do. We have to first create the calculation itself. What that means is I'm going to do average values, and this is gonna equal the value that we just created. I'm gonna take the average of, again, it was Spotify, its value here, Spotify, this percentage. And I'm going to format this scalar value as a percentage with, we'll say 1 decimal point. So we'll come back to this just to show. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to add this average value. And we still have this issue. Okay, cool. And I'll do it right here so you can see how it validates. I'm going to check this off, add this. Great. So we want to get the remainder so we can do additional formatting and coloring. So now what we can do is now we can create a new measure. And I'm going to say 1 minus the average values. And this is going to be the remaining percentage. Hit this, boom. And I'm going to format this as well to be a percentage. Decimal will keep the same as 1. So what we do is when we come back to our 100% chart and we're going to add additional things, well, let's add this as well. And look at that, we did it. Now this is how you get that nice squared rectangled 100% chart where you can see, and you can rename remaining to whatever else you want to call it. But essentially you'll now see that there's a bar chart and it shows the percentage is filled of 68.33% with the remaining amount of 31%. The remaining amount doesn't really matter. So let's go through one level of formatting for this. If you click the bar chart, let's go to now using the new functionality that is related to data labels, how we can pick a series, remaining percentage. I want to turn those off. I don't even want to see that. See ya. And now I can go to bars and remaining is bad, so I'll make it red. And there we go. And even, so now we went from the idea of having a table, not being able to create bar charts that separate the measures, but we pivoted the data. We created a new scores that put the measures into an attribute column. And we're now able to create this bar chart, 100%. We did it. So good job. If this is helpful, like, subscribe, ask me any comments. I'm always gonna be happy to help you. Thanks for tuning in. More to come. Bye.